Happy to be in this Zoom space with you. It's always fun to figure out new ways to convene. So thank you, Ashley, for helping us get situated here. So as you all are familiar with, since you're here, we are going to be talking about the midweek pop-up market, some best practices and reflections from the past 32 weeks plus of running the program and before and executing it. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with some introductions. So first, we have Lauren Cox. Lauren, if you want to wave. This is our organic procurement coordinator at Georgia Organics. Myself, Kayla Williams. I'm a farmer services coordinator. And we also have Rahul Anand on the phone from Snapfinger Farm. If you can wave to Rahul from outside his office. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Lauren to give us a little overview about our farm to restaurant program. Oh, just kidding. First, I'm going to do an introduction. First, we're going to hear from Lauren about the farm to restaurant, and then we're going to talk a little bit about why we created this pop-up market and then how we executed it. And then we'll have a Q&A with Rahul about the farmer's perspective of working with us in this market. And then finally, how you can do it, because we do think this is a really replicable model that we want to help y'all recreate in other places wherever you are. And in the audience, then we'll have time for an audience Q&A. Before we get started, we're gonna do a little poll to see who is in the room. So Ashley's gonna launch that and you'll be able to easily click through. Great. So now I'll throw it over to Lauren to tell us a little bit about the Farm to Restaurant campaign.
Hi, everyone. Wanted to say hi, Georgia folks. Hi, Washington, Oregon. Man, Virginia. Y'all are from all over. We're so excited to have this national convening on this midweek pop-up market. Thanks, Kayla, for the introduction. Hopefully I won't break up while we're talking. So yeah, we're here to talk about the midweek pop-up market, but first we kind of have to talk about the Farm to Restaurant program, which started it all and laid the foundation for this awesome market. So I just wanted to go over that with you a little bit. The Farm to Restaurant program started in earnest last year in 2019. We've been partnering, Georgia Organics has been partnering with restaurants on and off for events for many, many years. And this was kind of the earnest affirmation and intentional setting of goals for support for our farmers to access the restaurant market. So you see in the picture, these are some of our farmers in Georgia. We've got Andrea and Andy from Aluma Farm down in the west end of Atlanta with Chef Terry Koval from the Deer and Dove in Atlanta. They're an awesome group of folks. So some of the main goals of the Farm to Restaurant program in Georgia Organics was to connect farmers with chefs. We wanted to increase the demand and support around purchasing from Georgia producers by chefs all over Georgia. And we wanted to identify and spotlight restaurants and chefs that support and source from our Georgia producers. Next slide. The way that we had to go about doing this was first to understand the environment of the farm to restaurant world in Georgia. And we did that by identifying barriers to sourcing locally, as well as we wanted to understand what the current purchasing was by restaurants doing this type of sourcing. So what we ended up doing last year is we worked with 20 farmers and 11 restaurants to kind of understand where everyone was at. And one of those farms was Snapfinger, who you're going to hear from in a little bit. We also provided education, and we are continuing to provide education to our farmers in crop rotation, availability lists, sourcing, QuickBooks training. And then we also wanted to educate the eaters about these farmer champions who are the restaurants doing this sourcing. Ultimately, the funnest part of our job was connecting farmers and chefs. Could you go back really fast? Sorry. And we're doing that we did that last year through a farmer chef speed dating mixer. We've been doing one-on-one matchmaking. And this year, in the face of the pandemic, we did a program called Food Fight Georgia, where we provided boxes of vegetables to restaurant employees of farmer champion restaurants with a box of these vegetables. And we sourced all the produce in those boxes from the farms. So another part of our response was the Midweek pop-up market, and Kayla will talk about that. So you can take it from here, Kayla.
Thanks, Lauren. Sorry about the clicking. I'm struggling with that for some reason. So yeah, I'll go ahead and get us started with the presentation about the market. So like I said, I divided it into 3 different sections. So I'll go ahead and we'll start with the why. So why we decided to go about creating another market. We're trying to fill the gap for the farmers who lost wholesale revenue from the pandemic. I would say most of our farmers didn't completely lose their revenue from the wholesale, but definitely decreased as restaurants had less buying capacity. The farmers still needed to sell their food and move product, especially, spring and summer. There was a lot, and a lot of them were very focused on increasing their sales through restaurants. So they were growing a lot of food. So we're just trying to come up with a solution to help them move their product. And we wanted to keep it pretty specific for our farm to restaurant farmer cohort, not only because there are other amazing organizations in the Atlanta area doing farmers market work, but we also wanted to have a workload that was manageable for the Georgia Organics team, for Lauren and I, because this isn't the only thing we're doing. We wanted it to also flow nicely with the farmers' schedules, which is why we decided to make it happen in the middle of the week to kind of substitute for when farmers are typically dropping off at restaurants. We decided to utilize a friendship and partnership with the Wrecking Bar Brew Pub in Little Five Points, Atlanta. Stevenson Roslow is a great friend of ours and super generous in letting us use the space for free every week, feeding me, which was so nice during this time, and just letting us have the space for what we needed to do, truly because he just wanted to contribute what he could to help the farmers during this time. And Wrecking Bar is a farmer champion, part of the farmer champion program, as Lauren was telling us about. So those are kind of the whys. We were just trying to do a direct service COVID response, and we wanted it to be contactless. So how we did it, from the get-go, like I mentioned, we wanted something that was going to be easy for us to manage with 2 people, this not being our full-time project. So we wanted it to be super specific in who was going to be involved. So we only asked the Farm to Restaurant and Accelerator, which is another farmer services program, farmers if they wanted in, and then also Wrecking Bar was able to nominate any farmers they work with and ask them if they wanted to be a part of the process. We made the process super institutionalized from the get-go. What I mean by that is we just wanted to get our processes down to, again, be able to, for it to be manageable for everyone, the farmers, for us, creating systems that we could easily flow into from the beginning. We also at Georgia Organics use something called the RACI matrix, which kind of lets us understand what our responsibilities are and our roles. So we kind of took that idea and, really thought hard about who was doing what. So everyone was accountable from the very beginning. And no one was, everyone knew where they were supposed to be. And finally, we did it through frequent and direct communication with both the farmers and the customers. So we had a newsletter for the customers, and the order list from the farmers, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a little while, was also through, oh, I just lost my train of thought. We talk to the farmers on a weekly basis, and as well as the customers, to just make sure that everyone was engaged and holding each other accountable to being a part of the collaborative process. So I'll go ahead and show you what the landing page looked like. If you want to check it out yourself, Ashley's gonna drop a link into the chat with the landing page, and this is on the farm to restaurant page. So very great job, very cute job, Lauren. This was a super approachable and comprehensive way to engage people. We also went ahead and just talked about our intention with the partnership and kind of called upon Wrecking Bar for their generosity, as well as the whole reason we are doing this, to help support the farmers and Wrecking Bar through this time. So this is just, this is also from the website, and it just kind of talks about the weekly flow so the customers understand the program, because like I said, it is pretty specific. Every Friday morning at 9, the online stores open, and then you pick everything up on Wednesday. So it's from Friday to Sunday that the window is open. So to actually order the food, you would scroll down and click on the different logos of the farms, and it would bring them to their individual online stores. This represents the farms that we worked with consistently throughout the 32 weeks, although we had a few others that rolled on and rolled off depending on if they needed to move product, that were also in the farm to restaurant program. So we gave them that opportunity as well. So when folks click on those beautiful logos, it would bring them to the online stores of the individual farms. So on the left is an example of Atlanta Harvest's Harvey platform, and they actually used the pop-up market as a CSA drop. So they brought the bags fully packaged for us, and we just made sure that their customers got it. On the right, you can see Snapfinger Farms online store through Barn to Door. And then we have Pinewood Springs Farm and Ella J Mushrooms. And Snapfinger also sold Four Bellies meat products. So those 5 were kind of the key consistent players throughout the whole market. And what is really cool about Barn to Door is if you have an account, you can add things to your cart from multiple farms and pay at once. So it makes it really easy for the customer too. So if someone has black radishes from Snapfinger, peppermint from Pinewood, and oyster mushrooms from Ella J, you can just take all of those into one shopping cart and make one purchase. And then the customers get 1 or 2 reminders leading up to the Wednesday. So Barn to Door was definitely helpful, I would say, in this process. And it was really important for us to require the farms to make their own online stores, so that again, we didn't need to manage another system, but also the farms could take these online store platforms and use them in other retail avenues as well. So I want to talk a little bit about how much time it took up for us. So, as I mentioned, I was the main person coordinating the project with communicating between the farmers, with Wrecking Bar, customers, and managing the pickup. Lauren took care of the website, the beautiful landing page, and also supported me in any communications I needed to have with the farmers, reporting out through grant and board updates, that kind of thing. And Mary Elizabeth, who is our communications manager, looked over the newsletter, helped send it out, and did social media boosting. So I would say all three of us could be combined into one person if you're thinking about doing this in your own town. And it would be 8 to 10 hours roughly per week of a commitment, depending on how much time you wanted to give to the communications and social media side of it. And then we also had the lovely Susie Black, who is a Wrecking Bar staff member, and Katie Frazier, who is a Wrecking Bar manager, who provided day of pickup support. So Susie was there with me to manage that 4 to 8 slot window on Wednesday for the customers to pick things up and also pack the bags before. And then Katie printed things out that we needed and just provided extra support if we needed anything. So the weekly flow, this is Susie, by the way, with a fun vegetable. We had a good time. Definitely, if you're thinking about doing this and being the coordinator, get someone you get along with to sit there with you for multiple hours, have good conversations. It's a rare treat in a pandemic to get to spend time and get to know someone. So I'm thankful for that. So the weekly flow, I put a newsletter out for the customers through MailChimp. I aggregated the emails through our order lists, and we sent that out 9 a.m. when orders opened every Friday morning, just as a reminder for folks to go ahead and make their purchases, because it did require some extra planning and it was completely virtual. If you missed your window, then you couldn't pick your vegetables up this week. In that, we talked a little bit about Georgia Organics programming, as well as just some recipes, whatever I kind of saw fit. So then the orders were open for customers from Friday to Sunday. And Sunday at midnight, the order is closed. So folks couldn't order past then. And then all the farmers send me their order list by Tuesday through an Excel document. And then I manually merged the order list together. So if customer A had items from all three farms, then it would list on the order list all of that. And we also kept track of the sales so we could understand better the kind of impact that we were able to help the farmers make through this market. Farmers then brought the orders to Wrecking Bar by 2 p.m. on Wednesday, and Susie and I would arrive between 2 and 3 to pack up the orders for pickup from 4 to 8. So to pack the orders, we basically would just write their names on a brown grocery bag and put it together. If they had items from all three farms, all of that would go into one bag. One benefit of working with a restaurant space is that we had access to a large freezer for any meat items that we needed to store. So that is definitely something to keep a note of, is if you're thinking about this, some infrastructure that would be good to have is some cold storage. I didn't put this on here, but the final step in that 4 to 8 p.m. window was folks driving and parking in designated spots for the pop-up market. It had a phone number, either mine or Susie's written on it, and a spot number. So let's say Alicia Smith comes and parks in a spot to pick up their order and then texts Smith spot 4. That text comes to me. Alicia Smith pops their trunk open, puts their mask on to be respectful, and then we bring the order out to the car, and that's the whole thing. So it's super contactless. And, you know, I think that creating a weekly flow and system was really crucial to us having it run smoothly. So how is this market unique? It is completely virtual. It's only pre-order, so that's different from most farmers markets already. And because we had a landing page with the different online stores, it really was like a virtual farmers market. You went to the landing page and clicked away and made the orders. Um, it relied heavily, it relies heavily on the partnership with Wrecking Bar, and we really couldn't have done it without the generosity of their space. So that we put a memorandum of understanding together at the beginning to make sure that we were all on the same page too. And like I said, Stevenson really wanted to do this to help the farmers. And I think that if you can find a good community partner, that can go a long way and make this process more seamless. Like I mentioned before, we had a very specific group of farmers participating, which made it easy. Once people found out about this, they did want to get in, whether they were from Georgia Organics or not. But because this was direct farmer services program and we already had a cohort, we just made that very specific. So a lot of folks don't have the same type of cohorts that we have, but if you can think of parameters that you would like to focus on for recruiting farmers, that is very helpful, I think. And the final part of this market that makes it unique is the contactless nature. It made it more accessible for folks who might have different social abilities or comfort levels going to a farmer's market. It is, it is highly stimulating to walk in with there's dogs, there's babies, even in COVID with everyone's masks on, it's still a lot of people. So for folks who are high risk, who had different social abilities or disabilities, this was easy for them to access. So that was really important too. So the stats, the fun part, I loved getting to see how the sales were every week for the farmers. So over 32 weeks, we had 8 different farms participate with varying lengths of time that they participated. And all of the farmers in all made $55,374, which is really exciting considering that we only had an average of 45 customers each week and sometimes all the way only 20. And customers spent on average of $35 per week, which is relatively high. Most folks did have value added products on their stores, which definitely increased the spending. So the future of this market, last Wednesday was actually the final pop-up market in which Georgia Organics was involved in, and we will be passing the baton over to the farmers that I was mentioning were kind of the key group throughout the whole program. And they're going to be running the market at Wrecking Bar in a cooperative model. We're still working out all the kinks on that and the exact timing of when that will be up because it is a big undertaking to run a market. So, but we're excited to see where it goes and excited to support them in any way that we can. So I'm going to go ahead and start a Q&A with Rahul from Snapfinger. So yeah, if Rahul, if you want to, perfect.
Okay. All right.
All right. So first of all, do you feel like this market acted as a sufficient COVID response as a way to recover restaurant sales?
Yeah. I think especially the timing of it and from our perspective, the relative ease of participation from our end definitely made it extremely useful for us, like having it on the Wednesday where we're already out making deliveries, taking care of some things where it'd be harder for us, like making sure that newsletter goes out and everything, was extremely helpful because it started in April and we make our crop plans and whatever at the end of the previous year, and we've spent the money on whatever we've planned on growing. So in our case, growing a lot more than we had in the previous year. And so
Mhm.
having something like this that required, we had the product to move, and having this as just an outlet without us changing anything drastically or doing anything totally new was super helpful.
Awesome. That's great to hear. I also just wanted to say if any participants have any questions for Rahul specifically, you're more than welcome to drop them in the chat and we'll try to get to them. The next question I have for you is, how was the labor and preparation different for the pop-up market versus a regular market? Or was it?
I would say it was closer to like packing CSA boxes or packing for restaurant orders than it was packing for a farmer's market. Since, and we had a set of, we put in inventory, we had things that got ordered, and then we took that order sheet and packed to order. It was closer to that type of situation.
Yeah. And you were already packing for restaurants, so it kind of, I guess, flooded
Yeah,
that for your harvest schedule.
Yeah, we were already packing for restaurants, and then we were already packing for CSAs. So we were, if we had like 50 bags of something for CSA and 10 more for the midweek drop, it just flowed easily into our workflow.
That's awesome. And what would you say your percentage of total sales came from this market specifically?
Yeah, I'm glad you sent me that one before because I had to look it up. But I think it'll end up being somewhere from 3 to 4% of total sales.
Okay,
So
cool.
while that number might seem small, it's big. Especially when you take what that means week to week over 30 some odd weeks, and and payroll going out and everything. That's a really insignificant amount of money for us coming in, and made
Yeah.
like the logistical burden of changing up where we're planning on selling things a lot easier.
Good. That's awesome. Not sure if anyone else has any questions for Rahul in the chat, or if Ashley or Lauren have any questions. If not, I can move to the next section too.
I'm seeing a question from Katie Swanson. She says, I'm a farmer that owns an online market with 3 other farmers that is very similar to this model. We've been in this market for a few years, but it grew extensively during COVID. Since we don't have an organization like this providing staff time, our biggest challenge has been making time to run everything. You mentioned you will be passing this off to the farmers. How do the farmers plan to cover the staff time that will require that this will require to run?
Well, that is a great question. I would say we're problem solving that. Rahul, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I think for us, because of this will not be as big of a problem. We're planning on cooperatively paying either one of our own existing staff or some third party to take over what Georgia Organics has been doing. But what I'll say the key difference is because Kayla has been doing this whole time, and knows exactly how it works over 30 weeks, how it's been going. Georgia Organics secured the spot where we can continue doing it. Like it's kind of more of a passing of a torch and figuring out how to solve this problem to begin with. Which, I mean, from my end, that makes it a lot easier. And also being able to pull on the resources of Kayla having done it and be able to see like, okay, should we be doing this? Like this webinar, she's talking about how long it took. Those are things we would have to guess at otherwise.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Does
good.
that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. Looks like maybe we have another one. Maybe not. Well, cool. That's perfect. I'm glad that you feel that I can help guide you towards any problems that y'all might have. Oh, Lauren, go ahead.
We have another question.
Great.
It says, how does the $35 per order compare to what you do normally see at in an in-person market, Rahul? And how does the number of customers market compare to an in-person market?
It's Well, I don't need to look it up exactly, but the dollar per customer is higher. I don't know how much higher exactly. We have more traffic at the farmers market, but each sale is smaller.
I will say something that I noticed just through running the market is that the customer base is older than I feel like I typically see at a farmer's market. And so typically older folks do have a higher buying power. So that might also have something to do with it too, is the demographic was older. And I think that has something to do with the accessibility piece of it.
I'd also be curious to know, Rahul, since you do participate in a couple weekly markets here in Atlanta, did you see any conversion from folks who would be typically shopping at an in-person farmers market, knowing that you were doing this, having this contactless pre-order option? Did you see any customer conversion between those two types of markets that you participate in?
Yes. I don't know. I would have to break it down, but earlier in the year when we were doing pre-order for the markets as well, we definitely had participation there. I don't know how many converted to this drop location, but just looking at names, there were definitely a few. I just don't know how many.
That's cool.
Thanks for answering that.
Thank you. Well, we have about 5 more minutes to chat. I guess one question I had was about barn to door, and I know that you had your barn to door set up before the pop-up market, if I remember correctly. Or
Technically, yes. Like I had signed up for barn to door, and like I had a template store set up, but I wasn't actually using it yet. So I had they had reached out to me the previous year, and I didn't do anything with it at that time. And then they had followed up with me early in the year, and I was considering it. And then as soon as the pandemic situation started, I just was like, whatever, $90, I'll just get it and decide if I'm going to use it later. So I had it, but then like really the pop-up, actually when Lauren was like, this pop-up is starting, I was like, all right, I'll set it up for real now. And then that was kind of the impetus to get it actually off the ground.
And do you feel like you're going to be utilizing the barn to door, or have been utilizing the online store for other markets, or do you think that people mostly use it for this?
I was earlier in the year, I was using it for other things.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just kind of pared that down because we were just busy. Like I said, the logistical burden was not being taken care of at our other drop locations like it was at this one. But in the future, yeah, we're planning on using it a lot more in the coming year.
Cool.
Y'all, we have another question real quick. Do you plan to cooperatively purchase any liability insurance, or do the individual farmers have their own policies?
I think
Can we talk a little bit about that, like the difference between a traditional farmers market and this market in that regard?
From our end, I don't know from your end, but we have our own liability policies.
Yeah. I can say that we didn't do any like group policies when we started this. We didn't necessarily think that this market was going to last beyond. We didn't know how long the market was going to last. Our original MOU is until end of July, I think, or end of August. And so now that it's evolving, I think, yeah, since they all have their own individual policies, that'll probably be as it is. But I think that if the market, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Rahul, but like if the market continues to expand and you include more farmers in it, then it might be a point of getting some type of cooperative policy. But since it is still in the beginning stages, I feel like it makes sense to just do individual things for now.
Yeah, and I mean, like it takes, I can add locations to my liability policy and like on my phone in like 2 minutes.
I also do want to say a lot of the farms that participate in this midweek market are involved in other farmers markets, and a lot of those require umbrella liability insurance by at least like 2 million to officially
2
be
million.
to be a market vendor. So it kind of like overlapped. Stevenson at Wrecking Bar didn't ask about it, but I do think that, and I think that there are perhaps ways to get around it, considering Georgia Organics was not taking money for as an umbrella organization for an official market. Because, and maybe Kayla, you can answer to this too, like the specific things that Georgia Organics provided from this market,
Right.
you know, did not involve bookkeeping or an exchange of money. So
Yeah, there was no vendor fee for the farmers to participate, as long as they got their products on time and communicated frequently and directly with us as we asked. That was kind of our only pay that we needed. And yeah, I guess that's all I can really say for that. I mean, other benefits were just helping promote the market and keeping a record of sales, which I think we could do more with all of that data. I think it could be really interesting to see like what people were actually buying on a weekly basis, what products were most popular, and that kind of thing. I think could be interesting for a farm's future crop planning.
Oh, and on that note, Kayla, I think one thing I should mention, I was mentioning how easy it was on our end to do it
Yeah.
this year, but also the flip side of that is we didn't, speaking for other farms, us, a Snapfinger farm, did not put in a ton of extra effort marketing
Yeah.
and doing stuff for the market this year. But even given that, it was so useful. And it you know, like we're going forward, it shows that there's opportunity to do a lot more with it.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's something I'll talk a little bit more about, but I do think we all could have done a better job of pushing it out, but we also didn't want to overwhelm ourselves with the capacity and wanted to make it manageable, quality over quantity, especially in the starting stages.
we have a couple more questions, but I'm going to hold them. Thank you all for all these awesome questions. I see we're going to hold them until the Q&A at the very end. If that's
Perfect. Cool. Thanks, Lauren. Okay, we'll go ahead and move into the how you can do it segment. Very exciting. So what worked for us, having a reliable community partner of Wrecking Bar was the biggest thing, definitely. Like if we didn't have the space to hold this, then we couldn't have done it. And like I said, we did sign an MOU with them at the beginning to outline what we wanted. So I would definitely recommend doing that once you find a community partner / host site. I was paid through Georgia Organics for this. And I think that having it be a paid position is really essential for the market being successful, because people need to have buy-in and they need to feel a sense of responsibility. And in the capitalist world that we live in, you know, money is important for that. And it is a good chunk of time, 5 to 10 hours every week. So I think that's really essential. Again, having the landing page linking to the farm's individual online stores not only encouraged the farms to utilize the platform for other markets and gave them a kind of not backup plan, but kind of like, especially when we were creating this in April, it was really uncertain if the farmers markets were going to be able to continue. There's permitting things around what farmers markets are classified. Eventually they were classified as essential businesses, but we felt like the online stores would help them create a backup platform if they so needed it. Again, having an online newsletter, although the click rate wasn't especially high on the online newsletter, Raul said that most of his customers purchased within a few minutes after seeing that email in their inbox. So even if they didn't click and read it, they knew to go to the landing page and start making their weekly purchases. And that also let us keep track of how large the market reach was. So folks could both subscribe to it individually, or I manually inputted it into our MailChimp platform whenever we had new customers. And we had about 225 customers, I think, over on the newsletter. So that's a good reach. And then again, having a weekly flow and creating really specific processes was crucial to the success of this, for it to flow. And especially as you were saying, Katie, like, because the y'all are trying to figure out the labor part of it is when you're running it cooperatively through the farmers just working smarter, not harder, is kind of the mindset that we took, and I would say is really key to making it successful. So what we could have done better, I think that what we wanted to get to is a formalized onboarding document for the participating farms so that we were all on the same page with expectations. Packaging was definitely, I wouldn't say it was an issue, but it could have been helpful for us to be a little bit firmer on having a standardized packaging for us packing the purposes. It's a lot of P's for us packing the bags on our time. And also the uniform order list. So like I mentioned, the farms sent me their Excel spreadsheets and I combined them into one, but we did work with a farm at one point who just sent me a picture of the list, which was inconsiderate, honestly, of the time that it took for me to convert that picture into an Excel document. So I think it's really important for everyone to be on the same page of the expectations so that it can flow seamlessly. Like Rahul was alluding to, I think that we could have done a better job of marketing it, both on the farm's end and on our end, if we really wanted to expand the customer base. But we also, like I also mentioned, weren't necessarily looking to bite off more than we could chew. It was a small team, spread pretty thin during COVID response things, and this worked for us, but we could have created a separate social media page. We could have boosted it more. We could have spotlighted the farmers' individual products with little cute stories about it, and had more, on Nextdoor and different ways to promote it. I don't necessarily regret the amount of marketing that we did because it was a manageable workload for us. But if people need more sales to make it worth your while to put the labor in, then more marketing is needed for sure, because it is all online. It's invisible, essentially. Like, you don't walk by the market and see it from the street because it's all on a screen, which has a lot of benefits, but also can have, some cons if you aren't proactive about it. Like I mentioned, Wrecking Bar was super generous and letting us use the space, and we are the farms are going forward are going to try to think about different ways to incentivize for the host sites, through, either maybe like a virtual tip jar, or Wrecking Bar sells amazing beer, so maybe we could bring the beer up to the market and then sell it through there, or just put more effort on the marketing side in general to promote Wrecking Bar's products. That's definitely something to think about, is trying to give back to the space. And then, of course, if we had more product diversity, if we had a goat cheese vendor or a candle maker or something, we would expand the customer base too. So those are all things to keep in mind, is a good offering for folks, because a lot of people in these COVID times are minimizing the amount of times they're going out and shopping. So the more that you can offer in one place, the more customers you're going to reach. But again, that is a lot of labor. So that is something to consider. So, we wanted to share this with y'all because we do feel like it's really replicable, and we want to be available. I want to be available to y'all if you are thinking about doing this in your own towns across the country, to replicate it. And I want to answer any questions that I can. So feel free to send me an email at kayla@georgiaorganics.org, and I can answer on email, or we can set up a meeting, whatever works. And I'll just leave it with, if anyone has any questions, we can talk for the last 10 minutes. So thank you so much.
We do have a couple of questions. So one of the questions for Rahul would be, did you have an order minimum?
No. I don't really see how that would have helped us particularly. Just because, we're going there either way. And if someone wants to order something small, they can.
Cool. Thanks, Rahul. We have another question. Why and at what point did you decide to move management of the market to the farmers, or was that the plan from the beginning?
Do you want to answer this, Lauren? Or I can also.
I can answer it. I mean, yeah. So yeah, thanks for the question. This was never, so like Kayla said, there are a lot of programs going on with Georgia Organics. And this is a great example of direct farmer service to our farmers and the farm to restaurant cohort and our farmer champion partner at Wrecking Bar. But we want to think about this as like an idea that's been seeded with Georgia Organics, and that takes on a life of its own and can be recreated or taken over by other folks. And I think because we didn't expect it to be a permanent market. It was a direct response to COVID and to the farm to restaurant structure that we had been creating for our farmers and having that pulled out from under us, basically. And so it was a direct response to that. I think because it had an end date and we didn't go into it with, let's build this out forever, we were able to avoid the issues like liability, taking money, managing a consolidated ordering system. And so that was a benefit. And that was one of the benefits of why it was a temporary thing. Kayla, do you have any other?
No, I think you covered it. I mean, I would invite you all to, if you haven't looked into Georgia Organics' other work, I would invite you all to check that out, because, our goal with Georgia Organics is farmer prosperity. And so this was just one way that we could promote that, but we have a lot of other ways to do that. And there are other organizations that do farmers markets too, and we're not looking to become a farmers market organization. This was just one vehicle for creating more farmer prosperity. So that's kind of why we didn't feel like we needed to continue running it.
Thanks, Kayla. We have one last question up at least. Compared to an average year, Rahul, did you have more or less sales in the 2020 market season? I know Snapfinger was selling at other pop-ups too. Did you ever fear running out of vegetables, or did you have a surplus?
Comparing to a regular market season would be difficult because our business plan for 2020 was to triple our production, or more than triple our production. So we did have more sales, but I can't tell you what would have happened in a regular year, but we're generally looking like we're going to come right on the dot on what I projected for the year, just not in the same way that, not the same outlets that were in the business plan. Yeah, it's just tough to say.
I see a question also in the chat that I can go ahead and answer. So how did you facilitate the pickup in such a small lot at Wrecking Bar? Did you have more on-site support outside of Kayla coordinating product itself and getting it ready? I also was on site for the actual pickup, and because it was such a long window, 4 to 8, it was really steady. There were at some points people were in line, but generally it really wasn't an issue. Actually, we had 4 designated spots, and we did have a few people that were walking from the neighborhood to come get their product too. So I imagine that it could become an issue for other folks, and I would be interested in thinking about ways to avoid any congestion or backup, but it wasn't a problem for us. I would love to call upon read out loud a message from Eliyahu, who was the farmer at Atlanta Harvest. He says that it was a great way to bring different organizations together that can commit to creating a better environment for food. It allowed farmers to have direct access to customers and share resources so the growers can spend the much needed time in the field and know that food is being grown is going to homes in our cities. My family and I are very grateful and found it so successful. Thank you so much, Eliyahu. We are so glad that we were able to work with you and are excited that it's going to continue. So thank you for that sweet message. Do we have any more questions, Lauren? No? Okay. Well, I am happy to wrap this up. And if folks do have any more questions, feel free to email me and I would love to talk to you. It was such a great, fun crowd to have and to talk about such an innovative project that we got to work on this COVID time. So with that, I guess I'll wrap, and I will note that Ashley dropped a link to a survey in the chat. If anyone wants to fill that out, that would be really helpful for Georgia Organic's Good Food for Thought programming in the future.